I'd like to call the October 7th Davie County School Board meeting to order. Next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. I have a motion by Mr. Drexler. I have a second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is to entertain a motion to go into closed session to preserve the attorney-client privilege. Hold on, I'm not finished. Pursuant to the North Carolina general statutes listed on our agenda, to discuss personnel matters protected by state law and to discuss student matters made confidential by general statutes and FERPA. I have a motion by Mr. Drexler. I have a second by Colonel Hills. All in favor? We're in closed session. I'd like to reconvene our October 2nd Davie County School Board meeting, and I'd like to welcome everyone that is in attendance. First item on the agenda is the invocation. Loving and gracious God, we thank you today for all your blessings, for the successful outcomes of our school events, and for all of our staff members. We ask that you bless them abundantly, and we continue to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all of those who have placed their trust and confidence in us. Give us insight to lead with integrity, that our decisions may reflect what is right and good. Keep us from short-sightedness and pettiness. Help us to make decisions that are good for all and guard us from blind self-interest. Lord, grant us the humility to always seek your will in all that we do and say. Amen. Next item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance, and will be led by Boy Scout Troop 575.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from the September 11th. Have a motion by Mr. Drexler, have a second by Colonel Hills. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is important dates, and I will name a couple. October 17th, on Wednesday, we have a ribbon cutting at the student-run credit union at the Davie County High School. Again, it's at 10:30 on Wednesday, October 17th. Really exciting. It's going to be really neat. So if you can make it, that would be great. October 17th through the 19th, we have a few of us going to the Fall Law Conference in Asheville. And October 24th, we have Board of Education lunch at North Davie Middle School, and then, believe it or not, we'll be into November, as scary as that is. All right. Next item on the agenda is our Superintendents Report, and turn it over to Dr. Hartness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all out here tonight. I have several things I want to share with you tonight as we move through our agenda. September has flown by. After all the ominous weather forecasts, we became very fortunate in Davie County, but some of our neighbors down east were not as fortunate. There are still 9 school districts in North Carolina that are closed, and I'm not sure when some of those will reopen. But I've been very pleased and want to thank everyone involved in all the efforts that have been put together in our community to support our neighbors in eastern North Carolina. Yesterday, there were 15 pallets of supplies that went to Wallace, North Carolina, and Duplin County on the back of a truck from Christie Trucking from Davie County. And it's just hard to imagine, but this happened really quick. 2 Thursdays ago, there were a group of us came together and said, what can we do and how do we organize? And I want to thank the United Way, the Community Foundation, Christie Trucking, our county manager. I want to thank Wendy Horn with Davie Life Magazine and her marketing skills for putting together communications so that we could send a message out to our community. And this past Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we collected a lot of supplies for Eastern North Carolina, and they made their way to Eastern North Carolina yesterday. I also want to say thank you to our students and our local Young Lives chapter that helped us to organize students to come out and load that truck, and the churches that brought things together that had raised money and had purchased supplies. It was just a wonderful thing to be a part of, to see how our community gives back. And I want to say a shout out to Jane Simpson with the Community Foundation and all she does with our young people to teach them the principles of philanthropy and how to give back to their community. The principles that they're learning are phenomenal and will pay dividends to this community for many, many years to come. Speaking of hurricane relief, the North Carolina General Assembly convened in Raleigh this morning. They are considering a number of different measures on how to address the disaster areas down east and the school districts across North Carolina that missed multiple instructional days. You noticed on your agenda, we missed 2 days here. And we had already made plans as to how we make up those days. We're going to ask you to table that agenda item tonight because the legislature has a proposed bill that they're considering that could change the way we approach our decisions. So rather than proceeding with how we had discussed with you, the calendar changes, and publishing a calendar and then having to retract that, we would like a couple days to see what the legislature does before we make final decisions on make-up days for students and make-up days for staff. So we will be in touch as soon as we have more information. Always enjoy going to lunch with many of you at our schools. I want to thank Clint and Barbara and Terry for joining me at Moxville Elementary School. That was a lot of fun. We always get to hear students that tell us great stories, many things that we might not expect when we go to those lunches. I want to thank Jenda Haynes, Jen Line, Peggy Knuckles. The 4 of us traveled to Cary during the month of September to present Davie Leads, our K-3 or pre-K-3 literacy public-private partnership with the Mebane Foundation. We went down to present to the Mebane Foundation board. And almost an hour and a half of conversation with that board. It went extremely well. I am so proud of what the staff has organized, what our principals and teachers are doing with Davie Leads. It's a $2.5 million public-private partnership, an opportunity that not many school districts our size would ever have to promote literacy. Another investment in our community that will pay dividends for a long time. At our last board meeting, Aaron Full presented to you accountability data, and we talked some about third grade performance. After that meeting and before we went to the Mebane board, we dug in a little more to see where our students stacked up. And in 2017, at 60% proficiency, our third graders ranked 45th in North Carolina out of 115 school districts. In 2018, we increased to 64%, and we moved from 45th to 17th. So we outpaced 28 other school districts in one school year, the first year of Davie Leads. And I would just say that's phenomenal and something the board and staff and our teachers and schools should be very proud of. So we are on the right path and on the path to meet the goals that we've set forth in that initiative. I've mentioned to you the last several meetings about school safety grants. We've been fortunate to have been successful in getting an SRO grant, got a grant to put another social worker in our schools. Dragonfly House worked with the state to get a grant for 2 mental health therapists. So there's 5 positions there that we're not paying for that are supporting our schools. Dragonfly House also applied for another grant under the safety umbrella, and they have been awarded $31,000 for training to support our Compassionate Resilient Schools program. So another great shot in the arm for Davie County. Want to thank everyone that prepared and implemented the North Carolina School Board Association Region 5 meeting that we hosted at Davie High School in the month of September, and all of you that were there to support. that regional meeting, and I want to especially thank Wendy Horn for being our MC for the night and our district president. She did a phenomenal job of hosting us and our visitors from around the region. Board, at your place tonight, you have a letter from the Community Foundation. And in that letter outlines that the Community Foundation this past summer did some research, and they reached out to former graduates of Davie County Schools who had been recipients of scholarships of the Community Foundation. And they were able to reach, I believe, 168 of our former students. And I want you to take some time this week to read through that and the quotes from our students who are graduates. You'll see what our students are doing now that they've graduated, and the thank yous and the investment that we've made as a community in them and their success. The 168 who responded, 99% reported they had graduated from college or are still attending. 19% have attained a graduate degree or are working on one. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. So just another affirmation of the investment we're making in the community. I attended this past week a new consortium meeting. Ms. Haynes and Mr. Davis and I attended a meeting with the Davie and Davidson County Apprenticeship Consortium. I haven't seen competing industries and HR directors from competing industries who are trying to get the same employees come together like they're coming together right now in our two communities. They have come together and they're going to start our apprenticeship program this next fall, and they're going to be recruiting students in our high schools, local high schools in Davidson County and in Davie County for an apprenticeship program, paying for their tuition to attend community college, giving them opportunities to work in their junior and senior year in high school. It's just a fantastic program. You're going to hear more about that. There are other businesses who are wanting to come on board and be a part of that apprenticeship consortium, but it's a good thing for our community. The last thing I'll share with you is at your desk is a copy of a letter that was hard for me to write, but it's a copy of my resignation letter that I submitted to Mr. Junker. Will be effective the end of December. I want to thank this board and staff for the relationships that we've built. It's allowed us to accomplish a whole lot over the last 7.5 years. I have a lot of work to do over the next 3 months. I'll share some more with you if I can get through it in December. But I am very proud of the staff we have in place, and I am confident that this school system is on a very positive path for the future. And the investments and the time we put in together will pay dividends for a long time. So we're going to keep our focus and look forward to a smooth transition. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Talked to Dr. Hartness yesterday, and he sent me that letter, and I said, what if we don't accept it? He said, then we've got a problem. It's going to be next couple of months. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opportunities to thank you for what you've done, but let me say, first and foremost, thank you for the team that you have put together. We're in a great place. We're in a great place because of you and others, and we're going to find somebody. We're not going to find Dr. Hartness, but we're going to find somebody that hopefully will build off of what's already there. So thank you very much. I'll tell one quick story at our Maxwell Elementary visit lunch. So here's 6'5", big-headed, bald guy walking through, and I sit down with these first graders and, of course, start trying to interact with them, and they're just looking up at me, asking them questions. I'm like, what's the problem? And I look over and I see the red cup on their, and I said, you guys aren't supposed to be talking, and they just went. So the teacher came up and said, you were messing me up, Mr. Junker. Changed it over, but they got an award for not talking even when I was asking them questions. Anyway, it's always it is always a pleasure to go in those schools, especially a school that you went to is their age. It's amazing. Happens fast. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is recognitions, all state band honors, and we'll have Ms. Jenda Haynes.
Chairman Junker, board members, Dr. Hartness, and guests, as you already know, Davie County is extremely blessed to have a highly successful band program that's recognized and well respected across the state and even across the nation. and that's at both middle and high school levels. It's thanks to students, their talents, their efforts, as well as the dedication of instructors and parents. So tonight, it's our honor to recognize 3 of our student musicians for outstanding achievement. Selection into the North Carolina All-State Band is the highest honor that a middle or high school band student can achieve, and we have 3 of those. And I'd like to ask Andrew Jemison, who is our band instructor at Davie High, and Mandy James, who's at William Ellis Middle School, to come up and recognize their students.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and we appreciate the opportunity to recognize our students. I'm going to have to try the red cup thing in my classroom. Sounds like a good idea. I just want to invite Mr. Junker, I guess. No, but we do want to celebrate our students and their accomplishments. When I started working at Davie High School about 11 years ago, we could fit the number of students that even auditioned for all-district band into our county car. And now we take almost 4 full buses of students to audition for all-district band. And for the past 3 or 4 years, we've taken a bus to the all-district clinic at Appalachian State University. And those students from that group get to audition for the all-state band. And this year we were lucky and fortunate enough to have 3 of ours from Davie County that were chosen to participate in that ensemble, or those ensembles rather. And the concert was at UNC Chapel Hill in the Memorial Hall Auditorium, and it was one of the finest performances I've ever seen of an all-state band. And we had 2 students from Davie High School, one which is now not with us because he has graduated and moved on, but Aaron Locklear was a clarinet player in the 11-12 honor band, and he is now, like I said, at Appalachian majoring in music. And then we also had Mr. Quinn Collins, who is a trombone player, a senior at Davie High School this year, and he was unfortunately unable to be with us tonight due to working at our public library. But if you get a chance, go by and tell him congratulations. But he also made the all-state band in the 11-12 group on the trombone.
From middle school, we had Montgomery Belk. He made 3rd chair, all-state honors band for middle school, and at the time he was a 7th grader, and he was the highest placing chair 7th grader. So he's here tonight, so he'll come on up.
Congratulations. He thought he was going to get out of it. Next recognition is the United Way campaign for Davie County Schools, and Mr. Jeff Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman Junker and Board. We're going to try a few things new here tonight, and I hope I'm not being set up with the technology. Can I get my screen, the other screen up there, please? Davie County Schools participates every year and does a fabulous job working with pledging and raising money for the United Way campaign, United Way of Davie County. And it is always an honor to be a part of that group. Joining me here tonight is Marcia Perel. Marcia is the chairman of this campaign. She also serves as treasurer and board member. And she lives in Rowan County, so it's okay. So she comes here to do her good work. So we have Melinda Beecham with us tonight. Melinda, many of you are aware of Melinda. She's the CEO of the United Way of Davie. And it is an honor to let you know that the employees of Davie County pledged $31,300 this year. Our goal was 35, but that's okay. I want you to folks that reached out and pledged, we had a tremendous number of participants, and again, 31,000, I think, is the largest single contribution now, correct, since we've been through some changes, and we are no longer the largest employer, so we're still giving the most. So again, congratulations, and I want to say a big thank you to principals also, because they step in and have a campaign person at their individual school and help out, so thank you very much. One recognition tonight, we typically try to look at the school that had the largest increase over last year. And this year, that is Pine Brook Elementary, that increased over earnings over, or pledges over last year of 37%. So Brooke, congratulations, well done. Thank you for your efforts there. So round of applause for Ms. Brooke Pressler, please. Also, we asked folks if they could to consider giving $1 a week, $52. We call that our building blocks. If you give $1 a week, your name is put into no longer the pot, the whatever it's called here. So we have 234 names, so 234 staff, Davie County Schools employees that pledged at least $52. So here we go. Okay, the winner, the name that pops up will receive 2 or 4? 2?
2 tickets.
2 tickets to the Carolina Panthers Baltimore Ravens game on October 28th, and that is compliments of Pierce Group benefits. So we're very fortunate for that. So, and yes, Jeff Wallace's name is in here. Okay? Where's my mouse? Are we ready, Stephanie? All right, here we go. Drum roll. We got a musician. Here we go. Let's see what happens.
Erica Boss.
Do I want to delete Erica Boss and respin? I guess not. Okay. Don't want to delete her, do I, Stephanie? We good? All right. Thank you to our technology team who also was able to set this up, and Stephanie. So Erica Boss has won 2 tickets to the Carolina Panthers Baltimore Ravens game. Melinda, you have a plaque here. You'd like to share a couple things?
I would. I am always delighted to be here with you guys this time of year. This is my opportunity annually to thank you for everything that you all do for Davie County and for our children in Davie County. You know, I think teachers are awesome people. You do awesome jobs, and they're hard jobs a lot of times, and it's tough a lot of times. But the results of what you do is just about unequaled. And I always like to tell you how you helped me to raise my 3 fine children, and that I give a lot of credit to having gone through the Davie County school system to the success of my 3 children. And I've one in dental school at Case Western right now. One is in banking and one is in retail. And I just always like to tell you how much you're appreciated. And in my position as the CEO of United Way, I need to tell you how much we appreciate your support of your community through our work. And I would like to have Marcia, as our campaign chair, present our award to Pine Brook. So let's have Brooke come up. This is incredible, so I want Marcia to have her words.
We definitely thank you guys. I know that was a tremendous just increase of what you did at Pine Brook, and we appreciate all that you guys did. I mean, the whole school system as a whole, but, you know, raising that much was definitely a big increase, and we appreciate that support. So thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes, sir.
may.
Please.
Well, just understand when we vote for consent, the addendum is a part of that. So
Correct.
want to make sure that we bring that. Okay. Thank you.
Correct. I have a motion by Ms. Owens. Have a second? Have a second by Mr. Drexler. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. On to business items, and unfortunately, we have to have Jill Wilson and Allison Shaver here to discuss the superintendent search.
Unfortunately,
I mean, that we're having to talk about it.
I'm crushed. I don't know if I can talk, but I'll see what I can. I heard that. So I would like to take this opportunity to reintroduce you and to introduce members of our audience to our wonderful representatives in the state of North Carolina, the general counsel and a lawyer with her for the North Carolina School Boards Association, Allison Schaefer. I almost did it again, and Sam Thorpe. Yes. And Allison and Sam work for the School Board Association, and one of the many services that the School Board Association offers is that they perform superintendent searches. And while none of us are excited that we find ourselves here today, I can say that thanks to the efforts of Allison and her staff last time, we have Darren Hartness, who came to us through that process. You know, I'm a school board attorney who represents multiple school boards and also does work for other boards on occasion. A lot of the work that I do involves negotiating with superintendent contracts after Allison and Sam and their fellow attorneys at the School Board Association have found the good fit for those school boards. So without further ado, I think it would be appropriate to hear from Allison, ask Allison to step to the podium with Sam and tell you about what they do, and then, if appropriate, we can entertain a motion. Isn't he? See?
Good afternoon, all of you, or good evening. Nice to see you. I share your sadness that we are losing Darren. He's been a wonderful colleague and friend for a long time, and it's been great to watch him thrive here and watch you thrive with him as your superintendent. We are proud that he was one of the ones that we brought to the board, and I think only 2 of you are still on the board that chose the last time, but 7.5 years is actually a very good long run for a superintendent in the state, and we wish him well as he goes off to new adventures. I know he'll bring his excellence to wherever he goes, so we are happy to be here to help you, but sad for the reason as well. We did send the board a memo that talks about superintendent searches in general, and the handouts that we gave you have several things in them. One is a booklet that we publish that has information about conducting a superintendent search. And one is the memo that we've already sent you, and one is a proposed, or just a sample timeline. So we're here today to do 2 things. One is to talk to you about the superintendent searches in general, and then also to talk to you about our service, if you're interested in using us again. We certainly would love to do that, but it's not, it's your choice. So the first thing I think you need to decide when you're looking at a superintendent or search is whether you need to conduct a search, or you already know, that who you're going to hire. Some boards just hire from within or someone that they already know. So that's the first decision that you need to make, is whether you want to conduct a search. The booklet and the timeline, I'm going to talk from the timeline because it's easy kind of to follow. Most searches take about 6 months to do, from start to finish, and that means when the person shows up. So the actual search is probably 4 or 5 months, but then you need to give some time at the end for that person to come from wherever they're coming, give notice and all that stuff. So we prepared sort of an idea, a sample timeline for you that gives you an idea of the steps involved in a superintendent search. This one has you approving the documents and getting the advertising started at the beginning of, or in your next meeting in November on the 6th. It doesn't have to wait that long, but that was when your next regular meeting was. We do think that advertising for about 8 weeks is about the normal amount of time. So most boards advertise, and in the meantime, they do community input, where you have community members come in, or either come to public forums and or do surveys. And if you're interested in that, and you want us to work with you, we can talk to you more about that. But we do think community input is very important. And the best time to do community input is before you get the names of the people in the applications, for several reasons. One, by law in North Carolina, the board is the sole decision maker of who's hired to be the superintendent. and you do want community input, but there's also confidentiality laws that keep people from outside of the board from having access to the information about who the candidates are. So you want that information about what your community and your staff think before you go into looking at the application, so you can take that information in with you as you review the applications. Because once you get the applications, generally it's closed sessions and it's just the board speaking to people and looking at information. So we think that's very important. The way we do it is we have surveys that are online, and that's generally the way to get the most information, is because people are more comfortable. Sometimes not everybody's comfortable standing up and talking to y'all. And also, as the winter months come, it's hard to get out in the cold to go to a board meeting to have your 3 minutes to say what you're interested in as superintendent. So we find that if you have a survey like that you don't need to have as many forums. You can either have people talk at board meetings or have a forum or two. But we do think it's really important for that, and also for your business community and your community groups to give input. And again, we have a process for that, but we do think that's really important. The application deadline is, as we said, we normally recommend about 8 weeks of advertising. We do recommend, if you're going to do an outside search and that you are going to advertise, that you have the applications due after the holidays, because that's when most people are looking around for jobs. And with the holidays in between, people are really distracted in December or so. And so that's a good time. That's when that will keep you ahead of most people in the country that are looking, because most people are looking in the spring. So if you get too far beyond a January deadline, you're going to be competing with all the other states and all the other systems in the state. So, and then the board receives applications and reviews them. Our system is online, so the applications are received online and shared online. I'm not sure we did it online last time. It's a new system. But it's actually very efficient for the candidates. We recommend the board look at all the applications. We do not believe in having someone screen the applications for you, because you are by law the entity that is required to make the decision. So our process would be to get you good information, good candidates, and a great process, and let you all make the substantive decisions, but take a lot of the burden off of you all in terms of dealing with the day-to-day stuff. And we do have a team that is really great at doing this process. As Jill introduced Sam. Sam is one of the attorneys that works with me, but we have 5 of us that actually do superintendent, they work with me on superintendent searches. But we do think the board is the decision maker, and that's really important. No matter who helps you with your search, you should retain the decision-making authority. You would review the applications, and then generally boards will interview their first interviews about 7 to 10 applicants. And that more than 10 and you feel overwhelmed, less than 10 and you don't really feel like you have any a lot of choices. But it doesn't have to be in that number, but it generally is. And then you do what we do is, after the first interviews, we would do a thorough background check, and that's so important, that you get good references, that you get good information about the candidates, that you get a criminal and credit background check, that you do a thorough background check, and not just talk to the people that folks give you as references, but the other people. One advantage we have as a school boards association is every single school system in the state is a member of our organization. We know all the superintendents. We work with you all regularly. We know the school board members to call. We know the other superintendents. And I also have just finished a stint as the chair of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. We're very well connected with other states. We do a lot of recruiting and getting lists out of states. And we do recruit, but I want to just make this clear. We don't tell you who we recruit because we don't want to influence your decision, but we do try to get the word out. We talk to a lot of people when we do this, and we have good relationships. We teach in the Aspiring Superintendents Program here in North Carolina, and we're working on, we also are working with the national groups that are training superintendents to be. So you usually have a second interview, the first interview, the second interview. In between, you check references and all that, and then you make a decision about who you want to hire, and then it would be turned over to your board attorney to negotiate a contract. All those steps take about, like I said, 4 to 5 months, and then you have to, by law, have 30 days between when someone gives notice and they show up. if they want to keep their certificate, which is helpful when you're in this world. So unless their other sending district releases them early, but they can lose their certificate for the year if they don't have that. So this timeline that we did for you has you starting advertising on November 6th, or meeting on November 6th, starting on November 7th, an application deadline on January 7, which meets the stuff we just talked about, and then going through that process and having a final employment to begin on or around May 23rd, but you may just want to delay that until until July 1 to start the new year. Time can be squeezed in that. Some of these are just ranges. If you want to meet at the beginning of those things and you want to get the superintendent here earlier, you can do that. But it is a good time for folks to be switching between academic years. That's the most common time for folks to start is July 1. So, as I said, that's generally the process. It's discussed in more detail with the legal issues in your book, and we gave this to you as a resource, but we just went through basically a lot of the stuff that's in there. Our service, as I said, is we do this all over the state. We just do in-state, but we have contacts out of the state, and we actually are very active in lots of different national affiliated organizations through the National School Board Association. I'm actually a former chair of the National Council of School Attorneys as well. So we have contacts all over the state and all over the country. And we do think that recommends us to you. We've also been doing it. I've been doing this work for the School Boards Association for the last 19 years. I've been there 20. Before that, I was in private practice, representing school districts with Tharrington, Smith, and Raleigh. And I did searches before we had a service at the School Board Association. The attorneys helped a lot with a lot of the searches, and I did them in that capacity when I was in private practice as well. So when I came to the School Boards Association, I started the work, and then there are other state school boards associations that also do this work, so we became an affiliated organization. I've done 162 searches so far myself. I've organized all of them. I have great folks that work with me and do a lot of the day-to-day detail work, but I oversee all of them, and I've been doing this school law work for 32 years. So Jill and I go way back to law school. She was a year ahead of me at law school. But we're used to working well with the boards and the attorneys, and as I said, I've been doing this work for a long time, and what that gives you is contacts with 32 years worth of knowing people and working with folks, and the ability to call on folks when we need references, and the ability to know who's out there looking. We are very involved in talking to people about who want to be superintendents, and so we know who's out there looking. The cost for the search is a flat fee of $19,500 for all of the time that we put in, which is substantial. And what we do for that is we do all of the background work, we do all of the documents, we do all of the advertising. We'll come to meet with you, we'll staff all of your meetings. If you want to do forums, we'll staff the forums. We won't go into the interviews because we don't believe in that. Again, we want it to be clear. This is an opportunity for you to develop a relationship between the candidates and you, or the person that you choose and you. And so we won't sit in on the interviews. We believe should just be the board and the candidate, because that's the time when you're developing a rapport with that person. And we don't want anyone to have the impression that we have a say in who you choose. It's your decision. It's important you own that decision. It's important that you feel like it's your decision. And like I said, we get you good information. We also do background check information at the beginning of every candidate, just a Google search, an electronic search. And then we do reference checking, as I said, after the second interview. But we do give you some information that's out there publicly about that candidate. If someone's been bought out, we generally know that. And so we've always found that it was a more objective way to say it, rather than me telling you what I know, for us to have it in a newspaper article or in some information like that. But that's good information as you're screening, to know that information. So we do a lot of legwork. We staff the interviews, we draft documents for you, but I want to make it clear that when we do a search, it is your search. And if you want to change something, we have recommendations about what works, but it's your search if you want to do something differently, or if you want to have 3 interviews instead of 2, or have the format differently. We're here to make you happy. That's what we do. We're a membership organization, and our job is to make you happy and serve you in ways that you find useful. And we love what we do, and we bring a lot of passion to this work. So there are estimated costs that come after the $19,500, and that would be any kind of out-of-pocket costs like advertising and background checking and all that kind of stuff. But the letter really goes into all the districts we've worked with. We've given you some references. Jill, has, as she said, has worked with us in several counties. And so I don't know if you all have any more questions, but I would be glad to answer any questions or
You've done how many of these again?
162.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very early in your presentation, you said the average length of time that a superintendent stays with a system is, did you? was
The
that
average
something?
length of time nationally is about 2 years, which is almost no time at all, because you're just getting your feet wet when you leave. There are some very volatile board situations, and then there are some really stable ones like this one. And so I think that it varies greatly, but the national average is low because there's a lot of turnover, and school business is hard business. I have not done a study about how long the average is for us or in North Carolina because of this. There are some things you can't control. One of the shortest terms we've ever seen a superintendent search is 9 months because the superintendent unfortunately passed away right after he got to the job. So, you know, there are all kinds of reasons, and that was a really unfortunate one. Great superintendent, board was loving him, but he had leukemia and he passed away. So, so you don't know why folks leave, but it is not a very stable job, shall I say, in most places. Here it has been in many instances, and so that's really a good selling point for you all. I think if you make it clear you want someone who will come and stay, who will be here for a while, you have a history with Darren and people who preceded him of having a good, long history and a supportive board. So I don't know if that answers your question, but part of why superintendents stay a long time is if they're happy and they get along with their board and they feel like things are progressing.
Direct
Yeah.
correlation.
The other
Yeah.
thing I would say to you about our service is to sort of talk about that, is that it's important you find a fit you're looking for. It's all about fit. Is somebody fit with the board and the community? And certainly Darren has done a really good job of fitting in with the board. But if you don't find who you're looking for in the pool, which we hope you will, but if you don't find who you're looking for in the pool, we are with you till you're happy, and we do not want you to settle. We have gone and gotten additional candidates when the board just said, you know, there's some great people, but they're just not the one. We will go find you additional candidates. If you tell me what you're not finding, I'll go see if I can find that person, so.
Could you, while you have us here, would you comment on how the superintendents are interviewing us as well?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a two-way, this is a decision-making that people, both sides have to agree. And of course, people are interviewing you as well and deciding whether this is a board they want to work for. And the boards that are hardest to find people who want to go, or superintendents who want to go there, are the ones that are having a lot of strife, which you all are, you know, you don't have, at least at this particular point. But it's harder if the board isn't getting along. It's really hard if things leak, confidential things leak out of closed session. One of the things you will find, especially for sitting superintendents, which I anticipate you will get some of, will be that they don't want it out there in the public that they're interviewing. And we have confidentiality laws that protect that. So they're looking to make sure you can be discreet with their information and understand and respect them as well. And so it is, part of the reason we like just the board to be in interviewing is for everybody to get an equal chance to interact with that person and for the board to get a chance to work together. So, and to demonstrate that it works well together.
Did you have a question?
I was just going to make a comment that we are so fortunate here in Davie to have, with Dr. Hartnell's leadership, to create a community that supports our schools, supports our teachers, and partnerships that have come a long way. And we also have on the books the long-range plan, one that we finished 5 years, and then the new one that we just finished. So that to me is a very important piece that I think our board really wants to make sure that we continue.
Part of what we think is important is after you do the surveys and all that, and get the community input, is that the board come together and develop its own profile. And if you look at the timeline, I didn't really touch on that, but the board needs to decide what it's looking for. And that is part of what you advertise to the candidates and let your community know. But it's important to get the community and staff input before you do that. So what we suggest is that you're advertising at the same time as you are as getting those that input from the community and not develop your profile till before you get the applications, but after you get all that input. Otherwise, if you wait to advertise till after you do that, it's going to slow you down a lot. So that's why we suggest that way. But yes, it's important.
Any other questions, comments?
I would just add that our last experience with their services was excellent. They provide a very professional, very thorough search, and I think it's they provide a very good service that I think is something that this board seriously needs to consider working with them. I'll just say that.
I'll also ditto what Chad just said, because the professionalism as well as the fact of answering our questions when we ask them in a very timely manner was imperative, and I highly recommend.
I would entertain a motion if anybody is interested.
I'll be glad to make a motion that we work with School Board Association to conduct our superintendent search.
I have a motion and a second.
Would you like to perhaps amend that motion to authorize your chairman and your board attorney to work with the School Board Association to see if they can reach an agreement to manage your search?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
The motion was amended or modified to authorize the chairman and the school board attorney to work with the School Board Association to see if we can reach a contract on terms that we would find acceptable to conduct our search. Yeah.
With them.
Right. There you go.
I think if I'm correct, we have a second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? All right, now the actual motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. And the next step, after we talk about a contract, which should be something very simple, and we have a standard one, but we would come back and bring what we call our initial documents, and you would need to approve those to get started. So we would suggest that we come back on your November 6th meeting, which is, I think, your next regular meeting, and go through those. Is that
I think we're moving it to the 13th.
13th? Okay, I will look at that. I mean, that's fine.
And it's conceivable, if we needed to, that we could call a special meeting if time is of the essence. I would imagine we could work together to find a date to have a quick lunchtime or 4 o'clock meeting to get that done.
Yeah, although I think we still have the 2-month window between your meeting on the 13th, and it's about 8 weeks till when we have the proposed date. So that would probably be fine. Again, you don't want to have it due over the holidays, and so there's not really much advantage. But it's certainly up to y'all if you want us to come earlier. But presuming we can work out a deal, which I think we can probably do.
Not to put any more pressure on you,
Oh,
but
no
you see
pressure.
what you've brought to us last time, so.
Oh, I
That's
know what
we're
the stakes
expecting.
are. I get
Okay.
that.
Just wanted to be clear.
We
Have it
will
on the
do our
record.
best. You know, what you can expect is someone to come in and already know the system and know how to be the superintendent of your system, because that is just, because you're not going to get someone with 7 years of experience. But you can expect good candidates. This is a great place to live. It's a great community. It's a great board. I mean, what's not to love about this job, right, Darren? Right. So,
Good answer.
so I think you're going to get good candidates. And let me just be really clear about this, too. You're not going to see 800 applications. You're not going to see 100. The most I think we've ever had is 40-something, and that's really rare. If we get over 15, we're happy. I would anticipate you'll be somewhere between that 15 and 40, but probably maybe closer to the higher end. But 40 is a lot, and that's a lot to go through. These are very, very specialized people, and they are folks who know how to be a superintendent. There's not that many folks out there that want to come to Davie County, have all these credentials, and are interested in this. And you don't throw it out to the world. It's people with certification and experience and all that. So don't expect it to be hundreds of people. You wouldn't want it anyway, because that's a lot of material. But Anyway, thank you so much for the vote of confidence in us. Sam will be the one that will be working with me. I have, like I said, 4 of my staff attorneys that work on this, and Sam is one of them, and he's an awesome attorney and an awesome guy, and I'm sure you'll enjoy getting to know him, too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the North Carolina School Board Association Voting Delegates nomination. I'll get Dr. Hartness to help me with this as well, but the meeting is in November, and I think we have 3 that are attending, Colonel Hales, Mr. Potts, and Mr. Drexler, and we have a nomination spot of up to 4. But if you can, would you mind sharing just a little bit?
This is just a selection of those folks that the board would delegate to nominate for this position to represent the Board of Education at the School Board Association annual meeting, and we'll be voting on legislative agenda and other things that are part of that business.
So I would think we would definitely nominate those 3. Is there any,
Typically, you're going to have items like the legislative agenda or the priorities of the School Boards Association. You'd have input as a group on that. So every Board of Education can nominate up to 4 people to represent that board in voting during that annual meeting.
got Terry, Dub, and Paul. So again, we nominate those, and then there's obviously decisions made, so.
I'll make a motion to nominate the 3
Have a
to
second?
represent us.
Have a second by Mr. Fuller. Any discussion? Congratulations. All those in favor? That's 7-0. Perfect. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a North Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors vacancy nomination. School Board is seeking nominations for their Board of Directors. It'd be great to have representation, and at this time, the Davie County Board of Education has the opportunity to nominate someone to serve.
I'd like to nominate Dub Potts for the position. I think he'd do a fine job.
Absolutely. Have a motion? Have a second? Got a second by several, but Mr. Fuller, any discussion? All those in favor? Absolutely. We don't ask. You don't ask. Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations. You will do a fine
I
job.
think we should notate that the motion passed unanimously because I believe the candidate should vote for himself in order to show interest. No, this is not a place for humility. If you don't demonstrate interest, that could be a problem.
That was unanimous.
Thank you.
Sorry, what kind of board do we have here? Next item on the agenda is bus driver pay raises, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Hartness.
Board, this year, the North Carolina General Assembly in the budget provided funds to increase bus driver pay. There was a specific allocation of $15,506 that was allocated to Davie County specifically for increasing the compensation for school bus drivers. The staff is recommending that we amend the hourly rate of pay from $12 to $12.24 per hour, a 2% increase for our beginning bus drivers, and 33% per hour to 63% per hour for our other drivers that are on the pay scale. So it'd be a 2.75% increase for our experienced drivers. And that would take care of expending that allocation for the purpose it was delivered to us, and also help us to recruit new bus drivers.
Any questions?
Did they get an increase at the beginning of the school year as many of our staff members did?
No.
Okay.
They did not. Am I
So
correct?
this is the only
That's
pot of
correct.
money that we have for their increase?
Correct.
That is correct.
If I could, I'll remind you, the General Assembly did the same thing last year, except that they gave us a much larger amount of money last year. Last year, we were able to take the beginning bus driver pay from $10.95 an hour to $12 an hour. And this year, we'll be able to take from 12 to 12.24. And then last year, the average increase per driver was $1 per hour. So this, we did not do it on a percentage last year. It was, we had a formula we used, but the average was $1. And this year, we did it with the 2.75 percentage. So based on where you hit on the salary schedule, you would receive anywhere from 33 cents to 63 cents. So we've continued to see support from the General Assembly for bus driver pay. And we continue to request that you make this increase so that we can continue to be able to offer higher salaries for that group of people.
Thank you. Entertain a motion. A motion by Colonel Hills. I have a second. Second by Ms. Owens. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the Davie County High School restroom and concession stand bid results. And Mr. Michael Spillman.
Chairman Junker, Board, Dr. Hartness, and staff. You approved to build Davie County Board of Education approved to build a restroom concession stand for Davie County High School baseball and softball field in the 2018-19 capital outlay budget. The pre-bid meeting was held on site Thursday, September 13th, 2018 at 1 p.m. 6 bidders attended the mandatory meeting. Davie Construction, Dream Build Construction, Magnolia Construction, WC Construction, Williams Construction, and Wishon and Carter Construction. Davie County Schools opened bids Thursday, September 27th at 2 p.m. at the Davie County Maintenance Office. Davie Construction, Dream Built Construction, Magnolia Construction, Williams Construction, and Wishon and Carter Construction submitted bids. You can see the attached bid tab. Staff recommends contracting Dream Built Construction for the amount of $209,905.
Mr. Spillman and others, I pay attention to the numbers a little bit. I was really pleased to see that those quotes came in from 4 different people, and the little bit of margin between the highest and the lowest, it was close. So that what that tells me is that they each saw what we were asking for, and they each did their due diligence to come up with their price, and there was not a huge spread from highest to lowest. It was real close. That, to me, seems like a good thing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move that we accept the staff recommendation to hire Dream Built Construction.
I have a motion by Mr. Potts. Have a second by Colonel Hills. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Next item on the agenda is the capital outlay budget amendment, and I will turn it over to Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Chairman Junker, members of the board. The budget that was adopted for this project was in the amount of $200,000. And as you can see, the bid was for $209,000. What was it? Oh, gosh, I put it away. $209,905. And there are some other expenses that are expected for architect fees. So I bring before you this evening a budget amendment of $25,000 to increase the budget from $200,000 to $225,000. This $25,000 will come from unbudgeted funds that we have in this year's capital outlay budget. So I present this budget amendment to you for consideration and approval.
Thank you. Any questions?
Chairman, I had questions, but I called and asked, and it was explained to me, and I'm satisfied that everything is prime proper, and that I make a motion that we accept that amendment.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Have a second? Have a second by Ms. Owens. Any further discussion? I did good for an hour, sorry. I'm getting closer. Sorry, Ms. Horn. Have a second? No, that was a second. All those in favor? 7-0. Just, yeah. Almost over, I'm sorry. Next item on the agenda, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Miller for a budget resolution.
Thank you, Chairman Junker, members of the board. I'm not used to being over here, so you'll have to bear with me a little. Okay, we're going to talk about the budget amendment for the 18-19 school year. I'm going to start with some salary changes that were in the state budget bill. Teacher and instructional support salaries, the beginning bachelor step will remain at $35,000. The increase at the bachelor level for those less than 25 years of experience is anywhere from $0 to $6,450, and this is an annual rate. So that is anywhere from 0% to 14.78%. The average for Davie County Schools teachers and instructional support is 7.3%. The bachelor level with 25 plus years of experience received $700, and that brought their salary to $52,000. Veteran teachers, and that's those who are over 25 years and above, will receive a retention bonus of $325, and that is paid out in October. Assistant principals, their salary continues to be linked to the bachelor's salary schedule A, and this year it is at plus 19%. Last year, their raise was at a plus 17% of the bachelor's salary schedule. The average raise for assistant principals in Davie County was 8.7%. Last year, their average raise was 10%. The assistant principals continued to be paid on the advanced and doctorate supplements, and they are also held harmless. They continue to be held harmless. Principals, the salary continues to be based on the size of the school and the school growth in the school that the principal led in 2 of the past 3 years, and the school growth at the school for 2 of the prior 3 years. The average raise for principals this year in Davie County prior to this growth adjustment is 5.5%. Last year, it was 11%. The growth adjustment will come into play in January. Their principals are no longer eligible for master's or doctorate supplements. Principals continue to be eligible for bonuses that were implemented last year for the first time. If the schools that they led last year are in the top 50% in the state measured by growth, they can receive a $1,000 to $10,000 bonus based on their state ranking. We have 5 principals this year who will receive a bonus in October. 3 were in the top 50%, 1 is in the top 20%, and 1 is in the top 10% of the state. Our non-certified and central office staff received a 2% raise. We will continue to give bonuses for teachers. It's the same bonuses that were received last year for highly qualified North Carolina teaching graduates, AP, IB, and CTE bonuses, 3rd grade bonuses, and then 4th and 5th grade reading teachers, and 4th to 8th grade math teachers. And then, as you heard earlier, we received an additional allotment to increase the bus driver average salary pay rates. Are there any questions or comments regarding the salary increases that were implemented by the state budget bill? Okay, if not, We will move on to the, okay, what did Butch tell me I had to do over, no, Eddie told me I had to do something over here. Oh, that's it, F5, thank you. I like it better in that seat over there. Okay, I'm going to give you a budget update for the 18-19 budget resolution. We started back in April with some assumptions for the 18-19 budget. We were looking at salary increases of an average of 5% for certified staff. Well, you heard me say just a couple minutes ago, our certified staff average salary increase is 7.3%. It was 2%, the state did have a 2% salary increase for classified staff. And then there are also increases for the cost of employer retirement and hospitalization, health care. We're also planning on increases in cost of utilities and insurance, and we've realized those. We planned on an increase of local current expense revenue based on the new interlocal agreement of $567,314 from the county. We knew we were going to have a decrease in low wealth in the amount of almost $39,000. We had thought that we would see federal allotments of a reduction of 5%, and we did not see that. In fact, we saw a slight increase in some of our federal allotments, but they remained pretty much flat. Our state allotments are based on the planning ADM of 6,169 students compared to the 6,242 we had last year. And then the state allotment projection for the reduction for North Carolina virtual public schools and the virtual charter schools, those are dollar amounts based on what we saw last year, and we still have not received our allotment revision from the state, so I don't know exactly what those are at this point. I should be receiving them shortly. And then we had also considered reducing approximately 5 positions due to reduction in state funding. So we were not able to do that. We'll get to that in another slide here. Okay, this slide here shows you how our low wealth funding has changed since 2011. And because of a big part of this is because of the interlocal agreement that we have with the county and the additional funding that we're receiving from the county. There's a very complicated, detailed formula that the state uses to come up with our low wealth allotment, and this is where we're ending up for this year with just 47,000.
Ms. Miller, if I could add to that too, that formula is extremely complicated, and our funding is based on how we compare to the other 115 school districts, and we're probably at the bottom of the line when it comes to wealth now. We're thankful for the interlocal agreement because our county exceeds effort that's required in this formula. But compared to other counties and the poverty ranking we have, we continue to go up in wealth, and other counties are going the other direction. So while it's a blessing that our community is doing well, and the factors that are in this formula that relate to poverty in Davie County have changed for the good, it's a reflection of the funding that we get. And this affects positions that we can employ. A lot of the school districts that you'll see that have one-to-one initiatives or other types of initiatives where they spend millions of dollars in technology, they have a large sum of low wealth funding. Mr. Drexler.
Excuse me. Repeat something that you said for clarity purposes in my brain. We're receiving less low wealth funding, but thankfully we're being better addressed by our county commissioners now, and that is going to make up for that.
It makes up for some of that. So, you know, we're hoping that the interlocal agreement has been a blessing to us, and our county has shown the effort based on the taxes collected. They're showing the effort necessary to continue to be considered for low wealth funding. That helps to offset some of it, but this is a drastic decrease in funding over a short amount of time. I don't know that the interlocal agreement has triggered this. I think the relative wealth of Davie County is what's triggered this.
Yeah.
How we relate to other districts. The interlocal agreement just saves us from, if your county doesn't show enough effort, you can be disqualified from low wealth. So our county makes the effort relative to the taxes collected. So the interlocal agreement, I want to make that real clear, did not trigger this.
Because there's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like 90-plus different criteria that they look at to classify counties in low wealth.
I don't know how many
I mean,
it is,
it's
but it's a
lot.
long formula, he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. And thankfully, the interlocal agreement is picking up the slack from this.
Some of the, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'll be glad to share with you guys
Yeah,
what the
it's-
formula looks
it's a
like. There's a lot of
very-
factors that
yeah,
have to
it's-
do with the average wage. It has to do with the effort of the community, the taxes collected. There's a lot of different factors in that formula that beyond any of our control or our commissioners' control.
So to the point, this would still be happening regardless of what kind of interlocal agreement we had.
Absolutely.
Right. It's not happening because of the interlocal agreement. Right. Absolutely. Right.
Now we're going to look at some revenue changes that we're experiencing.
Let me ask you a question if I can. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But back to the ADM and the 6191, 93, 6169 that we're looking at now as assumptions.
Yes, sir.
Has there been any discussion with regard to increasing the ADM? Do we think the ADM is going to be as it was last year? Or is there any possibility that we could see a growth in that?
Well, our 10th day ADM number is 6128.
Right.
And we're expecting our ADM for next year to be pretty much flat.
Okay. As far as dollar amounts you're talking about now, right? Per
I'm
student?
talking about student, I'm talking about our number of students. I'm not talking about how the state funds us.
Right, and that funding is going to be based on X amount of dollars per student after the first 10 days, correct? Your funding?
Correct, based on the program and the formulas that go with each of those program
Yeah.
allotments,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, revenue changes that we're aware of for 18-19. Our funding from the state is based on a lower ADM, as we just discussed. Therefore, we have a reduction of 1.5 instructional positions. We have underfunded dollar allotments for personnel at the state and federal level. We have a loss of allotment transfer flexibility that we used to have that's been slowly taken away from us by the state. We have a decrease in the low wealth allotment, as we've just discussed. We have an increase in local current expense appropriation, which is a good thing. And we have a decrease in Fund 8 local revenue from the Medicaid and their E-rate programs. And as we look at these actual dollar amounts, in Fund 1, our state funds, when you do not, this is just looking at our dollar allotments. We have an increase of $301,000. When you look at our total local current expense budget, we're looking at an increase of $563,000 in revenue. And when we look at Fund 8, Medicaid and E-rate revenue and some other small little areas in that Fund 8 local budget, we're looking at a decrease of $282,000 in revenue for a net increase in revenue of just about $582,000. When we look at our changes in salaries and benefits, we have I think it's 495 state licensed positions. These are teachers and instructional support positions. There's about a dozen or so of those that are brand new positions. So when we look at this, we're going to look at 481 positions who have received a raise in the 18-19 school year. And As I mentioned earlier, the average salary increase is 7.3%. The average salary and benefit increase, when you add that benefit portion in, is 8%. That's for a total of about $4,746 per person. The total increase in the salaries and benefits is $2.3 million for the 481 certified positions. The employees who are not paid by positional allotments from the state, or by federal grants, or by other grants in our Fund 8, the salaries for those that are not paid out of that, the salary and benefit increases for those individuals is $1.1 million. The change in the retirement rate went from 17.13% to 18.86%, or a 10.1% increase over 17-18. And the hospitalization rate increased 4% from $58.69 per person to $61.04. That's a $235 increase per employee. Did you have a question, Paul?
Go back to your second starred item,
The
employees not paid by position allotments, federal grants, or other grants?
Correct.
They are paid out of what resource?
They'll be paid out of, they're paid out of some Fund 8 funds, they'll be paid out of local current expense funds, and then they're paid out of state dollar allotments. Your exceptional children, your AIG, those are some of your examples. The low wealth money. And
Thank
again,
you.
we're just talking about certified staff here.
Deborah, if I could clarify, when she talks about position allotments, when we pay people out of position allotments, if their salary increases 7.3%, 2%, or 14%, the state takes care of that position. When they're paid out of dollar allotments, then that's when it hits our budget. And when you see dollar allotments from the federal government, if they're just flat, but then you've got people that you're paying out of those dollar allotments that are getting 8 and 10% increases in salary, you can't employ the same number of people with the same dollars from year to year. So that's why that's important. And I want to point to that third bullet down, the change in the retirement rate. We've talked about this before. Each of our employees are required to contribute 6% of their salary to the state retirement system. The portion there is the employer-required contribution rate per employee. That's gone from 6%, I'm not sure how many years ago.
It was as low as 3% at one time.
3% at one time. Now it went from 17.13% to 18.86% in 1 year. That number alone is almost $350,000 hit on the local budget, on our budget. So, I mean, that is significant when there are that types of swings or changes. That's just 2 digits in a percentage in the budget, and that triggers a lot of activity on the local side. So, just kind of put that in perspective. The cost of retirement and hospitalization is really hitting all school districts' budgets pretty hard.
Okay, and then as we look at the expense changes, as we've just discussed, we've had significant increases in salaries and benefits. We've had an increase in insurances and utilities. We've had an increase in the Wyvetti contract for transportation. We discussed that in our last board meeting. We've had an increase in EC contracted services. We've added a half an instructional coach position that's split between Pine Brook and Shady Grove, and we've added half of a CTE position at Davie High. And but we also have reduced 3 other teaching positions due to enrollment. So when we look at all this, as we mentioned 2 slides ago, we have a salary and benefit increases in the amount of $1.1 million. We have other miscellaneous increases listed above here in the amount of $233,000 for net increase in expenses of $1,330,000. where we only have a revenue increase of almost $582,000. So we have a need to appropriate fund balance this year in the amount of $749,103. What are our next steps from here? We'll need to make adjustments in 18-19. We'll need to reduce personnel through attrition. We'll need to explore options to further reduce other expenses. We're going to do an RFP for insurance services to help to reduce those costs. We're going to explore some contracted service contracts and try to reduce those. And we will continue to make adjustments based on the new class size restrictions. Looking to the 19-20 school year, we should not see a decrease in ADM. We will see an increase in local current expense allotment appropriation from the county because of the interlocal agreement. We'll see an increase in position allotment for teachers because of the enhancement allotment that's coming from the state. We should see another 4 or 5 teaching positions being added to our state allotment. And with a successful RFP for insurance services and some work we're trying to do with some utilities and savings in that area, we should see a decrease in utilities and insurance. And this is all in the 19-20 school year. Another note, for this school year, we have an additional 5 positions that have been added to Davie County Schools using outside resources. We have 2 school resource officers that came to us from the state safety grant and local funding. We have 1 school social worker through the state safety grant, and we have 2 mental health therapists. And those are through a partnership with Dragonfly House and a grant from the Governor's Crime Commission. Okay, are there any questions on this presentation? Sorry, Butch. Yes, Paul.
If you'll go to the slide, it was the 4th one, changes in salaries and benefits. When you started talking about this page, our paperwork and the slide shows licensed staff positions of 481.
Correct.
But you said a different number.
We actually have 400, and I think it's 95, but 14 of those are brand-new teachers, so they did not get a salary increase. They're being paid, so that's why we're not looking at a change of salary and benefits for those individuals.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then you have before you a budget resolution for you to approve for the 18-19 school year. And as a reminder, this does include the use of $749,000 of fund balance in your current expense budget. And just for informational purposes, and you will, our auditor will share this with you in a couple minutes. When we look at our fund balance, we ended our 17-18 school year with fund balance in current expense in the amount of $1,892,327. So basically $1.9 million. And we're proposing to use $749,000, so that will leave you a remaining fund balance unappropriated of $1,143,000.
But as we did last year, we appropriated fund balance and we didn't use all of it. So we're not anticipating using that entire $749,000. There will be adjustments made throughout this school year to reduce that amount. But unlike the federal government, we have to operate under a balanced budget.
Thank you.
It's always painful to use it, but I'm glad that it's there. But it's getting smaller. Thank goodness we have it.
Dr. Hartness, just then, your comments were, last year we appropriated X amount, but we didn't use it all, so it remained there. At the start of the year, we had a certain number. And you said the appropriation for this 18-19 is 749, and you anticipated during the year, and I missed part of that sentence.
So the goal, anytime a school district would appropriate fund balance, is not to use all that. We have to appropriate it to balance the budget to begin the year. So what the goal of the staff would be is to go down this list of next steps and go ahead and make these types of adjustments throughout this school year. We're going to look at reduction of personnel through attrition. We're going to look at our insurance services. Michael Spillman does a great job of always looking for efficiencies. At some point, we're going to dig some wells at Davie County High School, and so we don't have water bills for watering fields in the future. So we're always looking at ways we can become more efficient with the dollars that we have. And we're going to put an RFP out for our insurance services. We know that we're going to have a decrease in utilities and insurance because we turned over the old high school in the middle of this past school year to the county. So there's going to be some savings that we realize, but Deborah also has to build a budget anticipating what the expenses could be. And that's why it's so important for school districts, while we're not required to have a fund balance. Only municipalities are required. It's important for school districts that plan well to have that. And when the state does more than we anticipated or less than we've anticipated, we have the flexibility locally to make those adjustments without layoffs and without making rash decisions. We've got the ability, and it's important for the board to always maintain a fund balance. This fund balance needs to build back up. We don't need to we can't afford to continue to use fund balance at that rate. We're very thankful that our employees receive well-deserved salary increases, but those increases come at an expense to the different areas. And when you see a decline in revenue, like in low wealth and some other areas, when we've seen a decline in enrollment, then those hit your budget. The good part that we're seeing is our initial numbers at the beginning of the year is our enrollment has stabilized. It's not declining as in the past. So every time it declines, your state funding declines. We should not anticipate a decline in state funding next year because of enrollment.
Thank you.
One more, please. On same page 4, you listed loss of allotment, transfer flexibility, new state rules. Can you give us an example of what that means?
It's called ABC transfer flexibility. We used to have the flexibility to move funds out of one pot of money okay, what I used to be able to do was take the allotment for the AIG teachers. Our AIG teachers are normally higher on the pay schedule. So if you get a dollar allotment, it's better, so we used to get a dollar allotment for AIG teachers. It's better for me to pay the lowest paid teachers with that dollar allotment and the highest paid AIG teachers out of state positional allotments. And we used to have the flexibility to move those dollars from the AIG into another area. And therefore, we were able to pay all of our AIG teachers out of state positional allotments, which was a really good thing because it could save us a substantial amount of money. But the state has taken that flexibility away from us. So it's taken away that ability to save money in that respect. I know I'm gonna lose you all here because it gets a little complicated but we don't have that flexibility, and that has taken away a substantial amount of funding that we used to have because of the ability to get the most bang for our buck.
Since I've been on the board, I have very much appreciated the fact that you know what you're doing.
Thank you.
And that was a compliment. That's big, big time. It's complicated. It's for people that don't do it every day. It's muddy and messy. I'm glad you know what you're doing, and I thank you for your answers to my questions that on the surface sounds like it's kind of dumb, but there's a whole lot of depth to your job and the position and the legal moving of monies from one pot to another, to use that phrase. And everybody that has anything to do with thinking about why this can happen and why this cannot happen, that decision was not a local decision by this board or any of our doing. It was done to us instead of for us.
Correct.
And so those that did it to us instead of for us didn't do us a favor at all.
Thank you. One more question. What was the allocation last year out of?
Fund balance? Okay, last year we allocated, if you recall, we did the 1% bonus for staff. So we had allocated $285,700 for that, but we only spent $276,600.
Okay.
So, and then we did not spend all of we had other revenues that exceeded expenses. So we only used $212,000 of fund balance last year,
Okay,
when we had planned to use $285,000.
gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Do we need a motion on this? Okay. I need a motion to approve. I have a motion by Ms. Owens. I have a second. I have a second by Mr. Drexler. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Next item on the agenda is our audit report. We got Mr. Mike White.
Thanks. 2018. I think I did that last year. But I'm going to tell you, very sad also to know this is the last audit report I'll present with Dr. Hartness as being at the helm of the district. So I share many beliefs that others have said earlier today. I do want to just take a brief moment to share one thing about Dr. Hartness and Ms. Miller also, and just to give you a little background on our firm. My practice specializes in school boards. I think I've told you in the past, 80 to 90% of my business is school board audits. Our firm audits 51 districts throughout the state, so we are really focused in this area. What I can tell you whenever, during the course of the audits, we may have questions from Dr. Hartness or Ms. Miller. These questions are always, what should we do? What's right? What do we need to do? There's other districts we see when we get the question, it's, I want to do this. You see, there's a difference in those two, and it really starts from a finance perspective from the tone at the top. When your perspective is, let's do what's right, then the small details sort of take care of themselves whenever you're going in that right direction. So we really appreciate working with that. So we are truly appreciative of that. I think each of you have a few sets of pages in front of you that I laid out on your desk. This is what I'm going to sort of try to go through off of these pages versus having to go through the lengthy PDF that you have of the financial statements. The first items you're going to see, there's 4 different opinion letters on the financial statements that we've got, and you've got them stapled together here at the first. One is on the overall financial statements. One is on internal controls as it relates to the financial statements. One is on internal controls as it relates to federal monies, and another one as it relates to state monies. In the end, I'm very pleased to report that all 4 of those reports are unmodified reports or clean audit reports. When we say unmodified, what we're talking about is there were no items that came to our attention during the scope of the audit that would say everything was in accordance with appropriate procedures except for this one modification. So there were no items to be modified on that. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give on a set of financial statements as your independent CPAs. And I just want to mention also on that, in the past, I think you've had several years with no issues, no findings, and there's no findings in this report, no internal control issues. That is not the commonplace from what we see throughout the state. You know, we may have districts that have, you know, 1 or 2 years of ultra-clean audits, but it's the exception rather than the rule, so just make sure you realize that it may be expected here at Davie County Schools, but that's not the rule throughout the state. The next thing I want to point out to you is probably the most significant change in a set of financial statements that I've ever seen, and I've been auditing schools 25 years now. And this is going to be on Exhibits 1 and 2. It's the first set of pages that you have on your financial statements where the actual numbers are there. And what I'm really going to, let me just tell you what it is. This year, you had to book a liability on your financial statements for the, they call it OPEB, the Retirees Health Insurance, other post-employment benefits. If you remember 3 or 4 years ago, you had to book a liability for the retirement portion, for the retirees' retirement. 3 or 4 years later, now we have to book the OPEB. The reason there was this time lag in that is calculating the insurance obligation from the actuaries is much more complex than calculating a pension liability, a retirement liability. When you start factoring in different projected future health insurance rates, I mean, just imagine how you're going to calculate that. That's very complex. Your life expectancies, you know, trying to estimate how long someone's going to work here and then retire. Point said, the accounting rules now are that you have to book those on these 2 pages. And in the past also, I've always told you really don't look at these 2 statements because that's more suited for cities and counties and whatnot, where someone could actually invest in bonds. So you want to know the amount of fixed assets you've got, how much the liabilities are. On a school district, your capital assets, your schools, they really don't mean much to you as far as managing the value of those assets. You're not going to sell those schools to fund your current operations. So I just want to point this out, though, because the numbers are so significant on that. What I'm looking at on this adjustment, if you look over on, it's Exhibit 2, and it's very small print, sorry about that, but we are required actually by the state to fit it all onto one page, so it's sort of hard to read. But if you look down on the right-hand column, the third number from the bottom, you're going to see a restatement number of negative $94 million. And that's what the liability, what Davie County Schools' proportionate share of the liability was at 6/30/17 at the beginning of the year. So it's a very large number. It dominates your statements. What I tell you is there's nothing really that Davie County Schools can do with this number. The state tells us what the liability is, and we book it. On all the districts we're auditing, we see that on every single district we've got. What I can tell you is when I first saw this, the state sent us out the information, wanted us to look over it and make sure we sort of agreed since we do so many schools. And I thought they were crazy, to be honest. I said, there's no way that all of our districts have this large of an adjustment for insurance when the retirement adjustment 3 or 4 years ago was much, much smaller. What it relates to is on the retirement account, you know, the retirement system at the state, you all probably know that it's North Carolina touts being so well funded, which is true, 90% funded. What that means when you report these liabilities, you report them at a net basis. So what I'm saying is if your gross liability for retirement is $100, you've got $90 in the bank, you have a net liability of 10, meaning it's 90% funded. On the insurance obligation, if you have a $100 liability, you've got $3 in the bank to pay that $100 liability. So then you have a $97 net liability. What that really tells you is the insurance plan is working on a pay-as-you-go basis. The contributions that you're making in as the employer, it's part of the 1896% that Ms. Miller just spoke to you about. A portion of that 18% goes in to pay for health insurance for retirees. Again, not for the 1886 or 96? 86. It doesn't go to pay any current benefits. That's all for retiree benefits. It's supposed to be funding the retiree plans. That money goes in there, so in the end, the health care portion is going right out the door in the same year for folks who are already receiving benefits. Otherwise, it would be more than 3% funded. That in turn is why the new employees that participate in the state retirement system and insurance system in 2021 are no longer going to have benefits. And that's stated in the statements also. Because in the end, at this rate, the math just wasn't going to work out. We talked about the rate being so high at 18.86. I mean, it was going to just keep on getting higher and higher and higher. So, and this is my opinion. This isn't anything that I've definitely heard from anyone at the state. I just think that this is almost the only way mathematically that they could rein in the cost of that healthcare system.
I guess, I have a quick question. I guess, I mean, by requiring each local LEA to book this liability, are they just trying to make a point, I guess? I mean, because there's no other real reason to do it.
The reason is, and it's really sort of on the accounting end that makes you do this, the accounting rules are national rules. And I think I've told y'all in the past, whenever you started booking the retirement liability, when you start hearing stories about Detroit and things like certain counties in LA and whatnot in California. And if you're Standard & Poor's and Moody's, they know what those liabilities were, even though they weren't on the books. But some wealthy individuals wanting to invest in these bonds maybe didn't know about those liabilities and invested in Detroit. And then they find out that we've got all these other liabilities sort of off the books. So it's very relevant there. So that's where the accounting rules were. It's a long answer to your question, but the accounting rules are written, and you can't distinguish between Detroit and Davie County schools because the employees that are participating in the retirement system are employees of Davie County schools. They're not employees of the state of North Carolina.
But some of the funds will come from Davie County schools or from Davie County.
Oh, exactly.
And some of the funds will come from North Carolina to pay this bill.
The majority of them.
Exactly. And that's what's so.
It is that way. But
Anyway,
I did learn from looking into this, up in Virginia, there's from what I understand, we don't audit in Virginia, but I've talked to some superintendents that are from there. The local LEAs can have retirement plans that provide health care benefits. And that's relevant to those guys, very relevant. For you, if you're sitting here and you said that your liability is $94 million, and I'm just going to flip over here and see what it's on the first page, it'll be what your cash is. Your total cash is $7 million. I mean, what's the answer to that?
Yeah, this is an obligation it's the state's obligation for paying our employees, but now it needs to be shown on our statements.
The point. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to make a point with what they're doing today. Anyway, I'll get off of it. I'm wasting time.
It's very, I mean, from the nerdy accountant, this is very interesting. You know, we don't have these types of changes, you know. But it's, there's a lot of schedules in those statements if you want to look through it. They're very telling. But anyways, I'm going to skip over to page, it's page 14. I think it's the fourth set of statements you have on the numbers portions there in front of you, Exhibit 4. And I think Ms. Miller's already spoken to you. We normally focus on the general fund, and that's the column on the left. The third line down from the bottom shows a decrease of $200,000. I think everyone here has already discussed you're appropriating 700 and some this next year. In the end, you know, you're still, you know, got reasonable fund balance, but you don't want to continue that trend, and I think we've discussed that before. Because and we've discussed this too, I mean, you have to cover any of the revenues in the state or federal. If they have mandated increases, if 1886 retirement goes up to 20, they may not fund all of that. And where does that come out of? It's going to come out of your local fund balance, essentially. I mean, and I always look at it very, very simple, just on an individual basis. Some people say, why do you need fund balance? Just as an individual, do I want to live paycheck to paycheck, or do I want to have a little bit of savings in the bank so I can plan for my future? If you as a school board have no fund balance, you're at the mercy of everyone funding you, and you may not make sound financial decisions out of necessity just to make that next obligation. So that's really probably not telling you anything on that, but certainly how I look at those.
I've got one more comment about booking that liability, and then I'm done. To me, the more accurate way to do that, if you're talking about folks looking at risk as it relates to bonds, would be for the local LEA to book whatever our portion of that cost is, and the state book the remainder, basically whatever percentage they're paying. To me, that would be a more accurate look, but that makes sense, so I guess.
That's the common sense approach. I
That's-
think
exactly.
what you're getting into, really what hangs you up is we've got to realize this plan is separate from the state. It is a separate plan, and the employees are Davie County Schools employees. You know what I'm saying. But common sense, you're dead on. Because you don't have the money to fund it. This next one's going to drive you even more crazy. Flip over to the next page, it'll be Exhibit 6 in front of you. I think we're on the same one. It'll be Exhibit 6, say page 20. On your child nutrition program, since it is supposedly supposed to be run as a business, the accounting rules require that obligation to be booked on the face of the financial statements. So your OPEB liability on these statements have to be booked for child nutrition. Unlike the statements we just looked at on your traditional fund statements, where you still can manage off of those, like we just discussed where your fund balance is, now your child nutrition statement, to me, is completely, it's just very hard to understand anything because you're booking that liability for future health care cost.
That useful, you need to look at that in a useful way, you need to pull that cost out.
You've got to do that.
Right.
But it gets more complicated because then when you look at your income statement, you have to back it off the previous year, look at the change.
Right.
Because this OPEB liability is so large, it completely dominates your income statement.
Right.
If the liability goes up $300,000, which it can happen, that means you created more expense of $300,000 in the current year. So what I tell everyone is to take the old adage of cash is king. I mean, I think maybe we should have been looking at child nutrition that way years ago. And I flipped over 2 more pages to Exhibit 8, page 22. But you will see that's your cash flow statement, and it shows that child nutrition program added $34,000 of cash this year. So, you know, I think that they do a good job. They pay the indirect costs. It's a good program from what we see throughout the state. And I think that's really how you're going to have to manage that program. And just a quick ad lib, but just one more little bit of information on that OPEB. You look at Charlotte, Meck, and Wake, their numbers like 1.8, 1.9 billion. Just huge numbers. Public safety in the state, state troopers and probably correctional institutes, 1.8, 1.9 billion. I mean, it's just almost unbelievable the size of some of those numbers. But the next thing I had was I try to point out the significant items that we may see, and the next item is on page 35, which is your capital assets. And I'm just looking down at the bottom, you're going to see the beginning balance was 41 million. It dropped down to 36 million. The main thing there, as y'all have already discussed, was the transfer of the old high school last year and taking that off your books. So that's why that big drop is on that. Then on the next page, you'll see this is child nutrition fixed assets on the little chart at the top of that page. And you'll see that those numbers went up a good bit, and that's because of the equipment that was added at the new high school that came into the child nutrition program. You do book those. And does anyone have any other questions or anything at all for us on the audit? In the end, you know, we visit the schools, we visit all the different department heads, clearly everyone in finance, and we're always very pleased with the cooperation we receive. We ask for information, and we don't have resistance in someone giving us that information and saying, why do we want this information or something like that. I feel that we get full access to anything that we want to look at, and that's vital in us performing our jobs.
Any other questions? Chad, one more time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public address to the board. Ms. Wilson.
Well, I've talked all I need to talk today, and just to tell you that other than the wonderful people who have come to speak with you so far today, there are no other people who would like to speak with you today. So no other public comment.
Thank you very much. Next item is the 2018-19 calendar changes, and Mr. Jeff Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman Junker. At this time, today, the General Assembly came back into session, and there had been proposal of a bill, and Dr. Hartness received a different bill or some work on that bill this afternoon. So my recommendation for now, instead of working through the two calendars we have here, is to table this topic, this agenda item, until we can get clarification from the bill, from the General Assembly, that could have an impact on our calendar and what we do. So I suggest that we table this for now.
We will do that. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Field House update, and Mr. Michael Spillman.
Chairman Junker, Board, Dr. Hartness, staff. I'm here to give an update on our field house project that's well underway, and they have really done a lot of work in the past few weeks. And as you can see right here to your left slide, that is the installation of the storm drainage around going back towards the school and down War Eagle Drive. And then you can see some grading taking place there around the HVAC unit that's sitting outside on the end of the building towards the school. And you can see the walls have been painted, the rough end plumbing is there. It's pretty dark in there now though, but we have, here you go, we've got the metalwork starting to take shape, and all the doors are hung. All the hardware's on the doors. Let's see here. There, the drywall's going up on the ceiling. We have a lot of folks working over there every day. They've been working Saturdays, and you can see some of the plumbing fixtures sitting there in the boxes. And there's one of the HVAC units hung in the coaches' meeting room. They're on the home side. And then there you have the sheetrock being finished. And it's amazing on how much work has gotten done in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And it's changed so much in the last 2 or 3 days since we put this together. And because they're doing the final grading today and pouring sidewalks today. So as you can see, the metal on all 4 sides is getting done. There the contractors are putting up the molding around the ceiling. Here they are starting to lay the tile in the shower rooms, and they're putting the base down for the floor there and leveling it up. And then we have an electrician on the right wiring up the lights, and then we have sheetrock finisher on the left. There's a propane tank from Energy United. They're very gracious to us again for working out a deal with us. And there we are pouring the sidewalk out front. This was done earlier in the week. And like I said, they poured the sidewalk out back today. And you can see the soffits, the metal soffits underneath are really, really looking good. There's some more of the storm drainage being tied in. And here's your tile work for your shower rooms. And it's really starting to take shape. And their Energy United showed up on site last week to put the primary power in and set the transformer. All that's complete. Meter base is on the wall. Here's your finished product for your showers, as far as what the floor tile is going to look like and the wall tiles. And does anybody have any questions?
The new occupancy date is?
In about, well, I know what they tell me, in a couple of weeks. But it's come a long ways. A lot of it's going to depend on Energy United and getting final electrical inspection, actually. Because they've painted most of everything on the inside. And the lights are hung now. Like I said, they've poured the front walk. They have, they've done the plumbing, the water heater's in place, and it's really come a long ways.
High-traffic areas from field to this field house for both home and visitor, that's a lot of cleats and shoes on the same path. What's the surface?
Oh, well, there'll be concrete sidewalks. There'll be there will be a concrete walk all the way from, there'll be two walks going to War Eagle Drive, and then there's two going to the field. And then there's another drive, concrete drive, coming from War Eagle Drive to the corner of the field house. So, but I'm not telling you the kids will not walk on the grass. So, but there is sufficient sidewalks to get you in the building.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Last on their agenda, and certainly not least, is the CTE, the rat rod. Everybody knows what a rat rod is. So it's got Will Mars and Seth James, but I'm thinking they're coming. There they are.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Hartness, guests, I promise I won't take very long at all. I do want to apologize to Mr. Spillman because I do know that he relishes his last spot on the agenda every time. So I do apologize for taking that. Hopefully he won't hold that against me. I do want to talk to you really quick, though, about the opportunity, the collaborative effort that by these two mainly, and I'm going to let them do the presentation. But it was a great effort on making the rat rod. And if you've not seen the rat rod, hopefully you will take time today because it is parked outside, which is why we're last, and you'll be able to see it. It was a great effort on the part of these guys and everybody else that had a part in it throughout the CTE department. But I'm going to turn it over to Seth and Will and let them talk to you about it.
Dr. Hartness and his staff and Board of Education members, on behalf of myself and Mr. James, and as well as the CTE department at Davie High School, we'd like to thank you for the time that you've given us to present this evening. My name is Will Mars. I am a drafting 1 and drafting 2 and 3 engineering teacher at Davie High School.
Hi, I'm Seth James, and I am your automotive technology teacher, intro through 1, 2, and 3.
There we go. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just to get you up to speed just a little bit, I know you introduced it as a rat rod. In case you guys don't know what that is, it is a vehicle that catches your attention. It's not like any other. If you pass it on the street, it's gonna make your head turn. Okay, we've referred to it throughout this build and throughout the rat rod community as radical alternative thinking, is what the RAT stands for. But there is a whole culture dedicated to rat rod building, and I was pleased to be able to share that with our students. So the venture started with the goal that we could get students of different backgrounds to work together on a project like no other. We've never done this, never done anything to this caliber, this kind of project, and it turned out really well. So it was originally sponsored by the Charlotte STEAM, which is STEM Add the Arts, in case you're not aware of that, and Harper Corporation. Harper Corporation gave us a budget of $5,000, a one-time budget of $5,000 to build this rat rod. And I thought, man, we could come in way under budget building a rat rod. Boy, was I wrong. We come in under the $5,000, but we don't have much left. But it was great doing it, and we look in the future to build another one just off of donations and funding. So we wanted a fun, enriching project that would show what our programs are capable of when working together. And we really want to focus on STEM. There's this new initiative, hands-on careers, and seems like I've just heard that out of 10 jobs, 1 requires an advanced degree, 2 require a bachelor's degree, 7 of which require a skill-based hands-on degree of some sort. So that's what our focus was on, is to get these kids to understand that it's okay to work with your hands. There are jobs out there, there are careers out there for this.
All right. So this is just a short snapshot of who all worked on this project. These 11 students are contained in Mr. James' class. They are the automotive students that helped do the majority of the work. But again, with this project, we were emphasizing cross-curricular and getting a lot of different classes involved within the CTE department as well as the rest of Davie High School. So involved were these 11 students as well as Art 2. The top right-hand corner is Chase.
Yes.
Chase. Chase actually did our paint scheme. He was an Art 2 student at the time. Our Drafting 3 engineering students, which is my class, we 3D printed a lot of different parts, a lot of different accents, which you'll see here in a second. Fashion design, which is Mary Sell's class. She upholstered several doors for us, and they had a big part in that as well. And the Carpentry 2 and 3, that was under Mr. Mark McKnight as well as Mr. Leonard May, and they have several different accents, which include we put a wooden bed in it, as well as a wooden bumper on the front, which you guys will see here shortly.
We picked the platform for this particular rat rod project. It's not one that I've seen in the rat community, as we would say. It started life as a regular 86 B150 work van. Nothing special, a little creepy, for sure. When we got this thing and we tore it apart, we made sure that we dissected it, that there was nothing left over from the previous owner. But no, it started life, like I said, as a regular van, nothing special, and this is how it ended up. So what my students have done, and I'll just give you a brief rundown, is we cut this thing down. We took I'd say about 4 or 5 feet off the back side of the van. We cut it down, we moved the doors forward to give it that truck bed look. Able to keep the side doors, all doors functional, and turn this thing, sort of our theme or idea was a tailgater machine. Still under the rat rod look, but use it as tailgating, maybe some future football or sports events, and all that. We have a grill on the back that is, of course, all this stuff was made by my students. I was there for guidance, but I did not take my personal time to work on this thing. It is 100% them. It is 100% all these students built. We were just there for guidance, maybe to help them with little snags here and there. But they took something as simple as that creepy van and turned it into something as wonderful as this rust bucket. And the rust is a part of the theme. We did that as part of that rat culture. We're trying to stay true to both the tailgate and rat culture with this. So it does feature a grill, like I said, and we cut it down to make it a truck van thing. So yeah.
All right, we'll quickly run through a couple of the details. This is the automotive side. So working with Mr. James, you'll see in the engine bay that is a hydrogen fuel cell. It is a working hydrogen fuel cell. It does add a little bit to the combustion system. However, it is not something that can completely run the car.
Just a little bit of green technology.
The fenders and flappers picture is where we just went through some recycled materials. I'm trying to think of what the pipe is.
It was just old flex pipe that was donated. A lot of the stuff was donated by the community. We had a lot of community support on this.
And then you'll see also that the fender flares are actually 50-gallon drums that we cut up and just reused some different things there. And then the grilling device on the back, we have cooked hot dogs on it before, and it does work. It actually extends from the back of the vehicle, and it's something we wanted to go with the tailgating theme. So this one is more my wheelhouse for my engineering students. The first one is the Rolls Rat. As everybody knows, the Rolls Royce has the angel as their hood ornament. We went with something that signified the War Rat, which is what we have named our vehicle. And that is actually 3D printed. So we 3D printed that in 2 separate pieces. The rat was 3D printed as well as the wings. We put them together and then spray painted it to where it looks like it's actually dipped in metal. The Bubba Cup holder, we say it's the Bubba Cup holder because we haven't found a cup that does not fit in it. It is very large. And then the other one is the cell phone holder, and those are also 3D printed projects for my Engineering 3 students. From there, I had them create mock-ups and meet with Mr. James and talk about what kind of accents and what we could add to the car. They made mock-ups out of cardboard, and then from there, they've actually came up with working prototypes, as you'll see with the cup holder and the cell phone holder. And I urge you to take a particular look at the cell phone holder. That was one that these students went through probably 3 or 4 iterations of it to finally come up with something that worked. And it works with simple hardware from Lowe's Hardware, as well as rubber bands, and it works just as good as any cell phone holder you'll find out. Super proud of them for that one. And then the last, this is cross-curricular. You'll see with the wooden bumper, that was through our carpentry class. Again, the denim doors, which is our fashion design class, which is Miss Mary Sells, and then the racing stripes, which was from Chase Johnston, who was in Art 2 at the time.
Okay, since we have built this thing, we were supposed to compete with schools from around the area that have got this same donation, but since Charlotte Steam has kind of shut down, they were looking for another revenue, so it's not done. We will still compete with it, but since then, we have tried to take it different places, and even at our own car show, we were fortunate enough to receive the National Street Rod Association's Merit Award. It's a very large organization. These guys, when you say car show and people bring cars, you're talking 10 to 12,000 cars in a weekend. That's the kind of stuff that these guys deal with. So we were fortunate enough to get that award at our own car show that we have each year. And then we have the lovely First Lady NC's approval when she come did her tour. I didn't expect her to fall in love with it, but I think she did. She was happy to sit in it, and she looked all around it, and I enjoyed her spending as much time in the shop with me and asking questions. Her staff was asking some very good questions, and it was really good to see that they actually see what we do and what we can accomplish. Moving forward. So with this project, we were just, advocacy, for the CTE programs at Davie High School. We definitely want to step it up. We want our programs recognized. We want these kids to understand that it is okay to take a CTE class and that it is okay to get your hands dirty, and that there are futures and careers in these areas. And we also want to do some future rat rod builds, potentially to sell and help with additional funding to the classes that help. You talk about budgeting tonight. I got an in-depth look. I have never got to see that before, and I was kind of excited. But some of the budgeting that maybe we could help these other classes above and beyond. Maybe some stuff that is not required we could, fund off of selling one of these, building and selling one. Talking about potentially entering this thing in the Hot Wheels die-cast car challenge. It comes around once a year, and maybe we could get this thing made into a Hot Wheels that you could buy at your local Walmart. More cross-curricular projects and extensions of STEM into our CTE department. Definitely want to get this. I want to get this into the hands of our math teachers and our science teachers. I want them to come in. I want them to get kids interested in helping us so that we bridge that gap. I want to, we had a kid from one of the science classes start to help us with the hydrogen fuel cell, but I think he might have felt intimidated, and he kind of left us about halfway through. So we picked it up and finished it. We took some ideas of his, we took some ideas of our own, but I would love to see the cross-curricular tie into other classrooms, not just ours, not just CTE. And eventually would love to start a Warrigal Motorsports Club out of this, the best of the best, so to speak. We want these kids, we want to attract a higher level thinking kids and just be an all-around great program. I think that's it.
Well, I think these guys deserve a round of applause for everything they've done. As you can see, they had a lot of fun with it, but they learned a lot too, and they had a lot of collaboration, and that's exactly what we're wanting to do, is to bring everybody together, collaborate on real-world projects, and that's what this was. But I just wanted you guys to have the opportunity to see it. It is parked outside, and they do have some lights out there, so you'll be able to see it. So when we adjourn, if you would like to go out there and look at it, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
One additional note, while you're looking at it, if you value your clothing, don't rub up against it. it's still a bit rusty.
Thank you. That's incredible how you tied so many different people into it. Opportunities is absolutely incredible. Can't wait to see it. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Does anybody have any closing comments? If not, we'll say one thing, and that is, I think this is our last meeting before election time. So I'll just remind everyone to get out and vote, no matter what that is. It's mostly local, but I'll remind everybody, but those are the ones that affect us most. So the importance of just getting out and vote. Early voting starts on the 17th and then November 6th. Yes, sir.
Can I add to what you're saying? I just learned today that there is a meet the candidates, any of the races, all candidates and any public that can come. Check the date for me. Is it Saturday the 14th? Sunday. It's Sunday the 14th from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock at the Masonic Picnic Grounds. Any candidates are welcome to come, bring their handout literature, signs, et cetera. I think each candidate is given a short period of time to make a PA announcement, but you can mix and mingle and shake hands and visit. And public has the opportunity to ask questions. So it's hot dogs, chips, and a drink. It's all free. You'll probably see internet or Facebook or some other promotions other than me, but heads up to you, if you want to go meet the candidates, here's an opportunity.
I have a motion to adjourn. Colonel Hills, second. Mr. Drexler, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you. That's incredible how you tied so many different people into it. Opportunities is absolutely incredible. Can't wait to see it. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Does anybody have any closing comments? If not, we'll say one thing, and that is, I think this is our last meeting before election time. So I'll just remind everyone to get out and vote, no matter what that is. It's mostly local. But I'll remind everybody, but those are the ones that affect us most. So the importance of just getting out and vote. Early voting starts on the 17th and then November 6th. Yes, sir.
Can I add to what you're saying? I just learned today that there is a meet the candidates, any of the races, all candidates and any public that can come. Check the date for me. Is it Saturday the 14th? Sunday. It's Sunday the 14th from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock at the Masonic Picnic Grounds. Any candidates are welcome to come, bring their handout literature, signs, et cetera. I think each candidate is given a short period of time to make a PA announcement, but you can mix and mingle and shake hands and visit. And public has the opportunity to ask questions. So it's hot dogs, chips, and a drink. It's all free. You'll probably see internet or Facebook or some other promotions other than me, but heads up to you, if you want to go meet the candidates, here's an opportunity.
I have a motion to adjourn. Colonel Hills, second. Mr. Drexler, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Good evening.